Good morning. Today we're going to do a review on Enchanted, which is a collection of short stories that came out around the Halloween period last year, 2020. You can get a copy of your book via Amazon or other places where you purchase your book. Enchanted is a collection of stories by authors Emem Bassey, Lauri Kubitsile, Michelle Sims, and Obinna Obioma. It's a romance, it's a fantasy romance collection, which is romance which is based on fantasy. So when I say fantasy, I mean that the stories feature human beings with extraordinary powers, otherworldly beings, as well as, gods and goddesses and things of that nature. So the first book, Emem Bassey's book, is called Born Call. And in this book, she talks about a relationship that grows between a warrior woman who grew up in an environment that wasn't really supportive of the way she is, who fell in love with someone who was considered very soft and weak, and how that weak person got otherworldly powers and what he did with those otherworldly powers and how their love and their romance came to be. And then the second book is by Lauri Kubitsile, and it's called Night Moves, and it actually features a mystical being within that is known within the southern African region, and it's called the Tokoloshi, which can be described as either a jinn or one of those little children that cry in the night, and you go and see them, find out who is crying, and something happens to you, they turn to this horror creature. So basically they are horror creatures in the southern African regions. And so she falls in love with this creature, and falls in love in quotes with this creature, and at the end of the day they have to resolve certain things that happen in her life, and something happens that makes everything right. I thought that this whole thing was based on, Beauty and the Beast. You see why I talk about Beauty and the Beast when you go to read the book. It's really interesting. I'm going to come back to that book again towards the end of my review. The third book was by Michelle Sims. It's called Return to Lagos, and it talks about the connection between Africa and the African American diaspora, and how certain things that are within the lineage passes on from generation to generation, regardless of where our brothers and sisters are located. And it ties it to the idea of the Orishas, which is, the gods and goddesses that are found within the southwestern part of Nigeria. So in this book, they discuss certain themes that are actually very relevant, less romantic based, that will click for many women out there who are having to make decisions about certain things like this. Then in the third book by Obinna Obioma, She Called Him God, this is a book about a man who falls in love with an otherworldly creature, a goddess. And interestingly, he's an agnostic. So it talks about the changes that had to happen, things that had to happen before he came to a place in which he was accepting of these entities and their powers and their abilities. Of all the four books that I mentioned earlier, my favorite stories were Michelle Sims' Return to Lagos and Obinna Obioma, She Called Him God. And the reason I liked these two stories were because, in my own opinion, the authors did a great job of character development, as well as did a great job of giving us a background story of who these people are, why they were the way they were, what made them make certain choices and certain decisions. And because of these background information provided, it made it easier for someone like myself to feel empathetic and to really get into the story. So it wasn't more of the action scene, that you see in romance. It's more about this understanding of these people as they came to be and the choices that they made. So I really, really liked it. So some of the themes that were discussed in the book that I liked was, like in Michelle Sims, beyond the love story, she talks about, the decisions that women sometimes have to make, when you have reached a certain peak in a career that you actually love, and then you fall in love with someone that is from a wealthy family, and you're having to make this choice of whether you have to leave this career that you love to go and face your family, make a family, take care of the babies, take care of your husband. And these are choices that women make every single day. Many times we're not given that option of choosing to say, okay, I want to keep my career, I want to keep this thing I love going on, because it might rock the boat. So I like the fact that she addresses that in the book. And then in Obinna Obioma's book, she called him God. I don't know what it was about the book I really enjoyed it too, because a lot of things are kind of similar between this book and Emem Bassey's book, but you see what I'm talking about when you do read it. But I just like the way they just developed the character. You kind of understood why he chose to be an agnostic, what led to that decision. And then I have some comments about other books. Lauri Kubitsile's book, I had an issue with it, and this issue was between Lasidi, the main character in the book, and her friend. Many romantic books, when you talk about romance, there's this issue of consent that sometimes comes up in many romantic books, between the main characters, or the character and someone else in there. So there's something that was going on between Lasidi and her friend, and it was this whole concept of consent that was so blasé, and I just didn't like that, because I was like, okay, we need to be a little bit more responsible, when we write. I know it's a fictional work and it shouldn't really matter, but this is what people read, and sometimes some people can be very weird. They cannot decipher what is fake life and real life. So at the end of the day, I recommend this book. If you're looking for a very nice, short, sweet read, you can get this book from Amazon. It's a very fast read. The stories are nice. The person who curated the stories did a great job. And it's highly recommended. So till next time, take care and ciao.